Welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians and lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host, broadcasting live from Lake Elmo, Minnesota, away from the belly of the beast, the liberal zombie apocalypse I call Minneapolis and St. Paul. Doing this one from home just because if you're not from Minnesota, you probably don't know what MEA is, but with all my children, they are out of school for many days coming up. And so here I am waiting for them for this fun October break, which is a delight. I think it's a conference or something like that's meant for teachers. And from my understanding, like no teachers actually go to it. I think maybe they go their first year. Let me make sure I share this on Facebook so everyone can see this. So that's what I'm doing here at home, wearing a hoodie, relaxed in God's country. Not quite. We're not quite God's country here. Close to it. You guys from out of state, we're live. I'm going to make sure I get everyone on Facebook here too. We're broadcasting live from YouTube, Facebook, X, Rumble, and Locals. If you're not a subscriber, an elite, Truth Hurts premium insider, please join us. I'm going to be live in our post show, which will probably be about 40 minutes from now. Got a real fun exercise with you. I've been very negative on a lot of things Trump lately, and I think people that follow me on Facebook kind of realize that. So I'd love to go. So I think I realized that I could be wrong on some things. Okay, I'm just reading the situation like it is. Okay, and I'm going to preface this conversation today on the show with how I see kind of the world of politics, right? And then why I think maybe Trump's falling short on a lot of these things. But I could be wrong on that, right? Now, I voted for Trump, okay? Let's not get that wrong. Like, I've never been a big Trump supporter per se, but I voted for the Trump and had reasons for it, and I was very vocal about that. It's the nice thing about having a show is you can explain that to people. But I could be wrong on my thoughts on Trump. And so when you're trying to make hard decisions, what better than a pros and cons list? So I put together one this morning, and the cons do outweigh the pros as I initially did it. Okay. So if you're a premium insider, let's go through this. You show me what I'm missing. I think this will be a fun exercise. I just posted the link right there, premium insiders only. We're doing a Wednesday show just because that's what the schedule this week allowed. As I mentioned, a lot of people, we don't have the normal schedule Tuesdays and Thursdays like we usually do. And most people watch this show after the fact. So sorry to all our live audience that's used to one thing. Okay. Let me get the advertisements out of the way here. This is brought to you by Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Great city. A city that I think is going to go red. Okay, that's my prediction. I think it's going to flip in 2026, which is very good because it's actually represented by a senator who's a Democrat and a state rep who likes to drink vodka from the back of his car. He's a Democrat as well, Dan Wogelman, who's actually now running for auditor of the state of Minnesota. So the good highlights of St. Cloud, Minnesota is not their Democrat politicians. It's actually Alpine Cabinetry. Also brought to you by Elite Guardian, mn.com. We have a concealed carry course coming up on October 20th, Tuesday, October. Shoot with me if you're interested in taking protection of your family and yourself into your own hands. Please sign up for our October 28th, which is it qualifies for your Minnesota permit to carry requirements. It's a lot of fun. Go right there to EliteGuardianMN.com. Just click on Minnesota permit to carry on the top. Okay. This is how I want to start this show. This is my premise on politics, and I've had this feeling probably going back to when the Tea Party started. All right. Tell me if you share this with me. If you're in the comment section, I'd love to hear from you live. The system that we have in the United States is completely broken. I was sitting down with my wife this morning and we were chatting about, I brought it up. This is not how we usually chat. Okay. She was humoring me. We were chatting about Social Security. All right. So think about this. I did a little research, figuring out, well, what is that trust fund at right now? What's the Social Security trust fund at? It's at $3 trillion. Okay, roughly. It's actually a little bit low, but it's about $3 trillion. All right. And I think I'm not revealing something you don't understand here. but the trust fund is actually not taking in more than it's paying out every year, right? So it's like it's actually going down, right? So I was thinking, like, obviously, Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. Can we just admit it's a Ponzi scheme? All right, so it's a Ponzi scheme. There's more people that are getting benefits now than are paying in, so therefore, it's basically the last in are going to be screwed. Um, so it needs reform, and this is nothing new. I mean, this is something going back to the '80s, like people talking about we need to reform. I remember George W. Bush and Al Gore in the debate in 2000 were literally talking about what to do with Social Security. And Al Gore used to have this thing about the lockbox. You got to put it in the lockbox, okay? Meaning you can't raid the trust fund. All right, so let's say we solve that. Here's Social Security should not exist. Okay, it's not a good program. It puts people depend on government, and it's going to really screw a lot of people that are going to be that hoping for it, right? And just so you know, you pay about uh, it's this self-employment tax is 15.3%. I can't remember how much is for Medicaid, but majority of that is Social Security. So what's that, like 12 or 13% goes to Social Security. And those of you that are W-2 employees, you pay it too. You just don't realize that your employer is paying the other half. So you probably know you got this thing called FICA taxes, 7.65% comes out of your paycheck, but your employer is paying the other half. So you really are paying for it, because if your employer wasn't paying that, they would be paying you that money. So it is still you, right? Just us self-employed people actually write out the check for 15.3%. All right. So we're not going to get it. It's a scam, right? It is literally a big scam. And I was thinking, like, well, how do you fix it? Well, you can't just cut off the people that are current beneficiaries, right? They literally, well, first of all, they paid in. Okay, now they did vote for those politicians that screwed everything up. But you don't want a bunch of elderly people like that are dependent on that income like out on the streets. Okay, so you got to continue them on, but at some point in the future, and I'm just going to say, let's say it's 10 years in the future, no one gets Social Security. Now, everyone has paid in, or everyone that's paid in should get that money back out of the trust fund. Okay. Now, that's going to be dependent on how many your age and how many years you paid in. But let's just take $3 trillion minus the 160 million people in the workforce. Do you know what that is? It's $18,750. Think about that. The government hands you back $18,750. Here's your retirement fund. Like, what are you talking about? All these years paying in, and that's all I get. That's all. That's what 3 trillion is divided by 160 million. All right. Well, you would still actually have to continue paying the tax, because once again, if you raided the trust fund, you would, well, even regardless of raiding trust fund, there still needs to be current people paying in the system to pay the old people that are currently beneficiaries. But you would need to continue that on, right? So let's just say you stopped Social Security. You're not getting it if your retirement's 10 years and beyond. But hey, listen, you still got to pay in for at least another 10 years, probably longer, depending on how much longer the beneficiaries go on, right? So there's money just taken out of your paycheck for a program that's going to be non-existent for you. But at least you got your money back, in the sense that, you know, you're not going to be continuing funding this program that's not going to be there for you, right? All right. That's not where the problem is. You know what ends up happening? The payments to you don't actually exist because the trust fund is invested in US Treasuries. So in other words, this trust fund, this pot of money, was taken and given to the regular general fund of the US government so that they can fund their unaffordable government, right? Now, if you invest in like a 401k at work or old pension plans, it was obvious that those pension plans or the 401k, they were going to go and invest that money. That's what you would expect. You want that money to grow. Okay, got it. We understand that. But when the left hand is borrowing from the right hand, right? And then the right hand's got to pay back the left hand, what do you have to gain here, right? So if they were to make this payment, they don't have the money. And here comes the last part of the problem. there'd be $3 trillion that some other investor has got to come in and fund. Now that could be foreign investors, but there's not likely $3 trillion in foreign investors that would do it. So it'd be like domestic hodgepodge of that. Could it be the Federal Reserve just printing the money out of thin air? Probably, right? That then depreciates the dollar, and then that lump sum of money you got back as deteriorating value, plus the current beneficiaries don't get as much back because their dollars eroded. So you need $3 trillion of people because remember, you have to pay off the debt. The government's not holding on to a $3 trillion checking account. They have zero money, right? They're running a $2 trillion budget deficit every year. Unless they sell all public lands and somehow raise $3 trillion that way, they don't have the money to pay this. So they need new investors, basically, to come in and buy treasury bills so that they can pay off the trust fund. So the trust fund has cash to divvy up. Got it? You follow me? Well, then what happens to yields on the treasury if all of a sudden you have this market influx of $3 trillion that needs to be funded, including the $2 trillion that's already out there, like every budget deficit? So yields are going to go up. The servicing our debt goes up, and everything that's related to the yield on the treasuries. So you have this like massive problem. Okay, I'm using simple numbers. Okay, in some regards, it is that simple, but it's not, right? It's obviously you wouldn't divvy up 18,750 per. The people that are new wouldn't get that much. You wouldn't get more than you paid in. But the point is, you're not going to get even near what you paid in. The government has completely screwed you, and there's no appetite in Washington, D.C., including Trump, to fix this problem that we have known for 40 years, probably longer. A program that was never supposed to be in existence like it is. This is one of the big dilemmas, one of the big catastrophes of the FDR administration back in the 30s, creating the Social Security Trust Fund. Okay, so this is a monumental issue. Now, why do I bring this up? This has nothing to do with Minnesota politics. The reason I bring this up is because politics, the system that we have, is so incredibly broken. The thing that I think the founders really fudged up here, okay, because the more I think about how do we do this thing in government, rethinking modern day government, I almost inevitably go back to the founding generation. I'm like, holy shit, that Constitution was really good. These guys were deep thinkers. They knew what they were talking about. This is such a great idea. Okay. But they missed one really key thing. And the thing that they missed was it should have been illegal, unconstitutional for the federal government to ever tax individuals or individual companies. The only way the federal government, and think about this, they wouldn't even thought of it at that time because the federal government was never supposed to be what it is. It's not supposed to be running retirement accounts and health care for elderly. It's not supposed to be warmongering overseas. It's not supposed to have something called USAID. It's not supposed to be doing all the stuff it's doing these days. So they probably didn't even see this happening. But in the very end of things, the federal government should be so limited in its role. And the states are the ones that have the power. This is so obviously the message of our founding generation embedded in the Constitution. That the only way they get their minimal funding that's needed is apportionment by the people per states, and then their states' treasuries will pay the federal government. And if the states have a problem with the way the federal government is acting, they don't submit that payment, right? They do not submit that payment, and then they ultimately hold the chips, right? It's the golden rule. He with the gold creates the rules, right? But the problem is it's backwards. And the federal government reaches into our pockets, completely fudges a massive program called Social Security. And by the way, that's not the only thing. You guys obviously know this. Every program that's run by the government, everything, almost every market where prices are out of control, it's like the government's behind it. Healthcare, education, right? They screw everything up. There's so many reasons for that. Probably the most important one is there's no incentive for government. You're not trying to maximize profit. You're not trying to deliver for your customer. It's your role is just to administer, right? That's why the DMV sucks, right? That's what we know. In Minnesota, we actually have like some private DMVs here that is shocking. Those do better, right? So this is the issue, is that we have this federal government that is fudging up so much it's going to cost all of us. This is the reason I bring it up. The perspective I've had, and I've had this perspective ever since like the Tea Party movement, because something like went up in our heads. Like, oh my God, we're poor. Like this whole economic system you told us was like fine and dandy, buy that house, all that kind of stuff, just imploded. And so that's what the Tea Party was, is people realizing, hey, we need to get back to the basics, like a real true conservative, what would have been called a classical liberal back in the day, but a real true conservative wants to preserve the Constitution, fiscal sanity, right? And the free market system, right? Like you get the government out of the way, we will be a prosperous nation and everyone will do better. Okay. And we were led to believe the Republicans were the answer to that. And I'll just be honest, like the Democrats clearly don't have solutions to this. All the Democrats whining, complaining about stuff today, it's a joke. Okay, it's an absolute joke. Let's go to, sorry, I totally forgot this in my prep. This is hold on a second here. I think I remember who did this one. So this was this was Walls today. Sorry, I have to find it. I think it was him that posted this. Give me a second. Problem with these people, some people on Twitter, there's so much on there. Okay, that's not it. I'm just going to generally search Tim Walz, because Tim Walz is lecturing us on the free market system. Okay, free markets. I think if I just search here, this is going to come up. Yeah, okay, came right up. Gunther Eagleman's talking about it. This is Tim Walz on MSNBC. Okay, Tim Walz, who's basically a Chinese-loving Marxist, is lecturing us and talking about how Trump is bad with business here. Give me 1 second. Right there.
The U.S. Secretary of Agriculture has talked about this. Republican senators. I mean, there's consensus now. What they're floating as the solution, which is what they did in 2018, the last time a trade war China's initiated, they cut off soybean purchases, and there was basically like welfare checks. There was a bailout, and it was just they took the cash and they sent checks out, which just seems like an insane thing to me, to kill people's markets and then replace it with checks. I don't even know if you can make people whole, but do you think that works? Like politically, does that sort of ease the pain, I guess?
No. Well, look, I do believe this. Our folks want markets. They don't want these bailouts. This is a short-term fix. Like I said, this is going to be year after year after year. The irony of this whole thing is, and I continue to say this, of all of Donald Trump's failures and the biggest myth, that this guy understands business. He's an absolute abject failure at business. And this whole policy around this is a failure. And the only way to get off this is to let the markets go back. And the irony, again, is calling Democrats socialist when I am begging for free markets here to allow.
Okay, so there you go. You have it. I mean, I've seen it all now, right? Tim Walz is a free market advocate, right? He's not the socialist. Trump is the socialist. Now, by the way, Trump has had socialistic programs, and I've criticized him on this tremendously, right? I wrote an article in March of 2020 saying we should oppose Trump's socialist program where he just hands out stimulus checks during COVID, right? They actually handled COVID the exact wrong way. Government should have shrank, similar to what happened at the end of World War II. But instead, government expanded tremendously and used the printing press. But it's like, I'm not going to stand here and be lectured by Tim Walz on this point, right? Like maybe Tim Walz is right about this point, but what leg do you have to stand on here? You don't believe this shit for a second. You're always interfering in the marketplace, right? So the Democrats have no leg to stand on. Now, here's the thing, and I want to introduce you to something. I talk about this with groups all the time. It's called the biggest con in politics, okay? So if you know the Democrats don't have a solution, they just don't. They don't have a solution, right? Even on war. I'm old enough to remember, like, back in my college days, because I was, in my latter part of my college days, we went to war with Iraq. We were already in Afghanistan. We went to war with Iraq. And I remember the anti-war left. I remember this, and it was coming from the left, and I was on the wrong side of that issue, in my opinion, at the time. And then there's a pro free speech left, right? And I also am old enough to remember the health freedom left, right? They don't exist. They have no legs to stand on, right? Rage Against the Machine, huge leftist band that literally was having, the name of the band is Rage Against the Machine, and they were requiring vaccine mandates for their concerts, like during COVID. That's ridiculous, right? They have zero credibility on solving issues, okay? I can't think of one area where Democrats have credibility on solving issues. So then you're forced in this kind of dichotomy of politics that we accept that there's two parties. And even in Europe, when there's multiple parties, it's not like they got better solutions here. But we have this dichotomy where the Democrats are wrong, so the Republicans must be right. The top marginal tax bracket at 39% is too high. We think it should be 36%. The whole debate on the progressive tax system is 3 percentage points, right? How about there's no income tax? How about the income tax is zero for all income levels? Because the federal government shouldn't be able to tax individuals or individual businesses. They should only be able to tax the treasuries of the states, and the states then agree with that amount and agree with the direction that the government's going in. And if they don't, they withhold their payment to the federal government. Okay, so I bring up this big con. The big con in politics is you go to your Republican legislator and you go, do something. And they go, gosh, Jake, you know what? You're right about that. But the real problem is the Democrats. And we need to get rid of these Democrats. And then you go, oh, yeah. The Democrats are, as I just admitted, the Democrats have no solution. So I just agree with the Republican. And guess what ends up happening? Oh, holy hell. They just did a reversal on me. Where I go to a Republican and go, do something about it, right? I mean, listen, the federal government, they only have all three branches, right? In the state of Minnesota, they only have the House of Representatives, right? I know it's 50-50, but they have the Speaker of the House. Like, if only there was something you could do, guys. So you go to these Republicans, oh, but we can't have those Democrats. And so what they've done is you went to them with your problems, your issues, and there's a lot of them, okay, because their government and their system is completely broken. And what they've done is reverse you and go, oh, yeah, we got to get rid of Democrats. Well, what are you doing? You're doing exactly what they want you to do. They want you donating, volunteering your time, messaging about how bad the Democrats are so that they can win re-election and their buddies can win re-election and then continue not to solve the damn problems. And the problems are so bad that the system is completely malfunctioning. If you're just tuning in now and you didn't see the beginning of this, I give the example of how bad Social Security is. If you don't understand, you will suffer the consequences of Social Security, the problem of Social Security. And that's only one problem. We're not getting into Medicare here. We're not getting just to the general government, which is $2 trillion overspending every year. And that's just the federal government. Let's talk about the state government. We see this show at the Capitol yesterday because we were led to believe by our Republican legislators, Kristen Robbins, Harry Niska, Walter Hudson, Lisa Demuth, who thinks she's going to run for governor. That's the word on the street. She's going to run for governor because, she's solved all these problems. And they're all going to, so they get this deal with the Democrats. If you don't remember, back in like February, after the Democrats had like basically not shown up to work for 3 weeks, they got this big deal and they're leading us to believe, they're gaslighting, they're telling us, we got you such a good deal. We have the oversight committee. It's got more Republicans on it than Democrats. And so we should be cheering and thanking these people. Finally, something is getting done. We have a fraud committee. All right, let's go to the fraud committee. This is from, I think it's a restream from Alpha News here. Nope, this is just from the Minnesota GOP. Rapid breaking. Today's fraud committee hearing, the Minnesota Secretary of State refused to say that illegal immigrants would not be able to vote using a driver's license under Minnesota's new driver's license for all program. Representative Patty Anderson, quote, we give driver's license to anyone here. You don't have to be a citizen, which is a photo ID. If they walk in to vote with driver's license, does their vote count? The Secretary of State's office says in this scenario, it's to affirm their identity. It is the other elements of being eligible to vote that the voter is attesting to and certifying when they register and when they cast a ballot. So the answer to my question is yes. Let's watch a little bit of this here.
Thank you.
The roster, and they would be permitted to cast.
Sorry, I'll get the volume up here.
Mr. Anderson?
Well, okay, there's your problem potentially.
Okay, sorry, I went too far ahead here.
If
Let's go
they
back to
have a
her
driver's
question.
License, but they have an incorrect social or no social or whatever. So then they become incomplete. But if they walk in to vote with their driver's license, does that make them all of a sudden now okay?
Mr. Linnell?
Madam Chair, so the designation on the roster for someone whose registration had been incomplete, if they present the election judge with that acceptable identification document, that would clear the challenge from the roster and they would be permitted to cast a ballot.
Mr. Anderson?
Well, okay, there's your problem potentially. So thank you.
So just to clarify, someone who is not a citizen but presents a driver's license at that point in the process could be permitted to vote.
Madam Chair, at the time of registration, as well as at the time of submitting a ballot, every voter is signing the attestation affirming their eligibility to vote, including that they meet all eligibility requirements, that they are a U.S. citizen. If it's determined then that the voter was not in fact eligible to vote, that information would be provided to the county attorney for investigation and potential prosecution.
Vice Chair Anderson?
Madam Chair, but if they sign and they say they're eligible to vote and they walk in with a driver's license, even though they're not, because we give driver's licenses to anyone in the state, they can vote if they sign that they're eligible.
Mr. Linnell?
Madam Chair, again, in this scenario where we're talking about a record that has been flagged for the CID requirement, that is the requirement that they must clear under federal law in order to be allowed to vote. It doesn't contemplate a hypothetical where someone is not otherwise eligible to vote, is to affirm their identity as the voter. It's that they are who they say they are. That
Okay, so did you learn anything from that? Did you learn this is the government fraud? If you go, they used to, I think it's still minnesotafraud.com or something like that. But if you go to the House GOP, right here you go right up to expose fraud. You know, this is, they don't have you notice how they don't have a list of all the fraud they found. Just tell us the fraud here, right? This is it. You don't, this is the fraud committee. Okay. All right. The point I'm trying to make here is we learn nothing from that. Like on the show, we have probably talked about this many times. We don't need the Secretary of State, testifying. Everybody knows that this is a vulnerability in the system. Now, in the end of the day, somebody that's illegal, ineligible to vote, a non-citizen, still is then committing a new felony act on top of not being a actual eligible citizen here. Well, I guess it depends on their status here. Maybe they have a green card, but they're committing another felony act by voting when they're not allowed to vote. Okay. We're not learning anything here, right? And there's no evidence, in my opinion, regardless of the fact that that's wrong. There's no evidence it's like changing election outcomes, which would be very important if the fraud can be somehow exposed that. But all they're doing is asking a damn question everybody knows. In fact, it was part of the damn debates during the passage of the driver's license for all conversation. And so what are we supposed to pat you on the back? Okay. I mean, this is the politics. This is what I can't stand these days. And I see this in Trump world. And if you want to participate, if you're not a premium subscriber, let's go through the pros and cons of Trump in the post show. I have more cons right now than pros. Although, let's be honest, if Kamala was president, the cons would be higher, right? Okay. But I have more cons than pros. And you see the right-wing influencers all telling you how great things are. Okay. I love Marjorie Taylor Greene, how she's like going around going like, no, prices are going up. Things are not being done that were promised. You're damn right. Because that's actually what really is going to matter in the election. I'm going to be a freaking broken record here. But this next election and the election after that's going to come down to prices. If you're not paying attention, you guys aren't paying attention. Like, I don't need to tell you this. This is only people in Washington, D.C. and the the elites that don't pay attention to this. It's unaffordable. You cannot, like, you are literally like in a pay cut. It's just, it's like snowball effect, because the more prices go up, it doesn't just go up for you and your family, which is bad enough. It goes up for local governments, which then have to tax you more. And then like, I was just looking at my mortgage statement, and I've lived in this house for let's see here, going on 8 years this next month. 8 years next month. And I think my mortgage has probably gone up $500 a month or something like that. There's been no refinancing. There's been zero refinancing at all. I think it's probably more than that, actually. But let's just say it's like $500. That's higher property taxes, higher school levy, health or home insurance. You guys know that home insurance going up tremendously. Every little part of that mortgage, other than the fixed 20, 30-year interest rate, which hasn't changed, everything else has changed, and for the worse. And that's only the mortgage. Because it's like you have basic needs, right? And one of them is shelter, okay? Then beyond that is like health, right? Which, don't get me started on health insurance, and that's going up too, right? Especially if you're self-employed like that, and then you really feel the pain. But even if you're employed by your W-2 employee, you just don't recognize it. Maybe if your employer is still paying it, as though some employers might say we can't pay it, but you're not getting a larger tax raise or less bonus because health insurance costs are going up for them on your behalf. And then you go to the grocery store, right? Like, this is the problem. The system's broke. The system's not working. And so what we need are change agents. And I think you are like me, or if you're coming to the show, hopefully I've made some impact in your mind here to think that we need a fundamental change to our system. And the Republicans aren't doing it. They can sit all day long with a supposed big deal fraud committee, but inevitably their solution is the big con. We can't have these Democrats. You need to vote for us, and then we'll solve it, right? Like, no, you're not solving anything. You really aren't solving it. And it's just going to perpetuate each election cycle. It's why, like, Action for Liberty is so hated by these people, because Action for Liberty exposes both the Democrats and the Republicans. That's not cool to them. You cannot do that. You're supposed to get in line, hear the approved talking points. This is what you got to say, right? You just need to be Sean Hannity and praise us. You just need to be Alpha News. Democrats bad, Republicans good, right? But that's not the reality. The world that we live in, like, you know how it goes, because you're probably more political than most of your friends. That's why you're watching the show. Or you just happen to come across us on YouTube or something like that for the first time. And hopefully you like what you're hearing, because you probably agree with me. Like, and this is why a lot of people don't want to identify with the Democrats or Republicans, right? I was a Republican since I was, cheering and voting for George W. Bush, right? I was even in high school against Bill Clinton. I knew the Democrats weren't a solution back then, and they were more of a solution than they are today. They're just a lost cause, but the Republican Party continues to fail. $37 trillion in debt is not a result of just Democrats. It's a result of both parties. We sometimes call it the uniparty because the establishment in those two parties really aren't that different. They get along just fine. But even when you get past the establishment, you get kind of like the fence sitters and stuff like that, they're not solving the problem, because they're incentivized to just keep things the way it is. They're getting invited back to the party, but eventually everything comes back and screws you and me. And that's how I view politics more these days, is just through the lens of, I am for the little guy against the elite or against the political class. I try to put most of my focus and energy on exposing corrupt people in politics, on the actual people in power, and not your rando, activists. It can be hard at times, especially some protesters, right? But the general Republican, the general Democrat out there amongst us, out there, is not a bad guy or not a bad woman or not a bad they. Might be a little misguided on things, but they're not bad. They're not trying to screw you over. In fact, in many regards, they're on your side. Like there's a community. Look, I don't know if most people know this in the audience. I do a lot of coaching of young kids, like 3 sports. Like I'm coaching year round, right? And I try staying out of politics as much as possible. Every once in a while, I get like a parent that finds me on social media, and I always am like, "Hey, do you know? Just if you follow me on Facebook, it's very political." And they usually know that's why they're doing it, right? But I keep politics out of it, right? Because we're all trying to do something. We're trying to do the best thing for the children, right? There's a community. We're all trying to do something to make our community better. Mine happens to be Lake Elmo Stillwater School District, right? That's the real world. That's where people are living. Okay. Those are the people I care about, and my family and my friends, an extension of that. But the politicians, they don't care. They do not care at all about my friends and stuff. They're just using things to continue to get more position of power, maybe even kickbacks, money, right? These are not great individuals, right? And so the system definitely needs to change. And it really comes down to us not playing this con game of, oh, yeah, it's the Democrats' fault. Good Republican. No, we got to call spade a spade. We got to call out the Republicans when they are not acting, when they're doing jack shit about it. Just one last comment on this fraud committee. Sure, Democrats are in charge of administering this bureaucracy right now because Governor Walz is in charge, and because the Republican Party in Minnesota is so incompetent, they have not won statewide in 20 years. Okay, so it is the Democrats that are running the executive branch of our government, but it's not just the Democrats that are funding it. And Kristen Robbins, who thinks she should be governor of Minnesota, and Lisa Demuth, who thinks she should be governor of Minnesota, she's going to announce here pretty soon, apparently. They are not solving these problems at all. They're actually funding these problems. When the Republicans came up with this big deal on the budget on April 1st, I thought it was an April Fool's Day joke. They agreed with the Democrats on how to fund our government at the same level. And oh, by the way, it was more than we were taking in taxes. So in other words, the Republicans came up with an agreement on the budget that spends $2 billion of our surplus. And there isn't a deficit right now in Minnesota. There is actually still a surplus, even though the politicians tell you it's a deficit. They have a reason for that. They want you believing, well, part of it's the gaming, this, the messaging system, because they want you to believe Walz is running a deficit. It's all Walz's fault, even though actually, in some regards, the Republicans are right there, because the Democrats did have a trifecta and they spent more than they took in. But Republicans are also voting for this government, or passing these bills, and they have never advocated for giving back the entire surplus, and that's what they should be doing. Okay, so that's my general message today, is that I think we need to demand I think it's actually almost like more important to focus on the Republicans now, especially if you're into federal politics. I try to stay away from that topic on this show. Obviously, I care a lot about federal politics, but I know you tune in mostly because you want news from Minnesota, and the Republicans in Minnesota at the state level are just as bad, just as incompetent, just as much show up, do nothing, complain, and then the big con, you need to get rid of the Democrats, help us win, and then nothing ever changes. And it's like, no, you need to get something changed right now. We need to stop funding this out of control government. Okay, I am so sorry. I missed so many comments. T-Wall said, spot on, Jake. Thanks. Ride Dog, that sounds like a new person. Never will there be accountability and consequences for anything unless the people enforce it. But I like the people have to enforce it. Love that. Good job, Ride Dog. Want you in this conversation more often. Cindy Lou, I see you in the comments. Chaz 651 O'Bannon, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Beth Moy, thanks. Sorry, I just missed the comment section. All right, now if you're not a premium subscriber, what I want you to do, I want to go through this with you. I'm very curious. Prove me wrong. I'm going to type in there, become a premium insider now. This helps our show tremendously. We're going to get Mega Jesse back here, have some interesting guests. But I'm really so this helps the show become a premium insider. Just go to that link right there. Or if you're watching after the fact, you can go to truthhurtsnews.com or on the top of Rumble, click join us. And you can watch this post show after the fact. You don't have to do it live. But I'm very curious. I got a pro and con list. I'm really at this point very upset with the Trump administration. And you would think, oh, geez, Jake, you should be so happy. You just brokered this deal with Israel and Hamas. It's like, okay, let's see if that sticks. But there were some sins going into it for the last 9 months, right? Like, you were pretty much giving Israel a pass on everything, funding it, including the expansion of their war effort. It's like, now I should thank you after 9-10 months of that because you possibly got us a peace deal. I'm gonna be really reluctant on that. Now, obviously, I wanted a peace deal. It's like nothing more. He's really failing on Ukraine peace deal, and now we're funding Ukraine again. Anyhow, I have all these negative thoughts on Trump. It started basically in the fallout with Elon Musk because I thought Doge was a great idea. I was so optimistic about it. I was like, holy crap. Is Trump actually going to drain the swamp, right? Like literally drain the swamp, get rid of all this crap? And then no, he ends up expanding the Pentagon budget to $1 trillion, and we still are running a $2 trillion budget deficit. So it's like no, but then the and you guys know this, the Epstein files, the lies. I still can't get over that. I told you I'm never going to get over that. You can't lie to me. That's not a thing. Did you see what Trump said about getting into heaven and then bragging about his daughter converting to Judaism? It's crazy. And then the things he said about what's her name? Adelson, Sheldon Adelson's wife, Miriam. Is it Miriam Adelson? Dude, like, okay. Anyhow, I am getting like these like very anti. Oh, man, this is why do you hate the Jews? Jake? Yeah, exactly. And then you hear that's such a pathetic like commentary against people like me that are just like, no, I'm sick of this kind of stuff, like that. Like Charlie Kirk literally was getting off the Israel bandwagon at the end. Like it's very well established at this point, thanks to Candace Owens, by the way, that he was getting off the pro Israel bandwagon. In many regards, it's like Trump really saved Netanyahu's butt because he was suffering so bad, right? He was losing conservatives in the United States of America, right? Maybe I was one of the OGs that was against this thing from day one, but I don't care. Come to our side. Let's join and force that Benjamin Netanyahu was wrong, like so wrong. In fact, he's a war criminal. And now he's going to basically get off here. Okay, I'm going to save this for the post show. I got a pro and con list. I am curious. Maybe I'm off. If you guys can give me a reason that the pros way outnumber the cons, I'll shut up. Okay. So in the post show, we'll do that here. I'll share this publicly, but this is something fun for the audience. Now I'll be very interested if you find more cons than I've already got. That'll be very fascinating. And this was brought to you by Alpine Cabinetry in the great city of St. Cloud, Minnesota. We're actually, Action for Liberty is doing a lot of door knocking, as we found out from Liberty Longbeard, who came on the post show last week. Also, we're brought to you by Elite Guardian, mn.com. If you need to get your permit to carry renewed or get it for the first time, or it lapsed and you want to go get it again, you can check out my course. It's a concealed carry and home defense course. It qualifies for your Minnesota permit to carry requirements. It's USCCA certified course material. It's just a great course. A lot of people love it. It's getting great reviews and great demand too. So sign up there. Go to LeeGuardianMN.com and you can sign up. It's on October 28th is my next one, which is a Tuesday night. That's up in Hugo, Minnesota. So please join us. I will be live in the post show. For everyone else, we will see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.